Vishnu Shashivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasannavadaram Dhyaye Sarvavighnopashantaye Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murtibheda Vibhagine Vyomavadvyaptadehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryan Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So we were looking at the 18th chapter. We are on verse 20, where we are looking at various aspects of the sadhaka, the seeker, and the pursuit, all in terms of the gunas, the three. There's a qualitative difference in what we know, in who we are, in how we do things. So wherever all of this, in spiritual pursuit, one thing important is motive. It's not just they sometimes, for example, sin. When you think of sin, and at some point we must have all thought of this, that a particular action is sinful. So as though an act in itself has the quality of being sinful or not. But really speaking, to judge an act, it's very difficult to judge an act without understanding everything that goes into the action. So that's why it's so difficult also to pass judgments on people and pass judgments on what they do. Because it's not just an action. The action involves the person who's doing the action, what that person is all about. And what is it that motivates someone to do something or not do something. Putting out a gun and shooting at another person and killing that person is a sin. You can't make a statement like that. Even though killing is a sin, it's true. Killing another person is bad, okay? There's nothing about it that would be acceptable. Yet, one cannot just by the act itself say whether it is right or wrong, whether it is sinful or not. Because it has to do with what the circumstances are, it has to do with the person, it has to do with the motive. All those things have to be considered in order to pass judgment on an action. So an act is just an act. It's a physical thing. There are other things in it. So similarly, even in spiritual pursuit, it's in terms of the actions that we do, the attitudes that we have, the values, the understanding. All these things constitute part of this whole process of spiritual pursuit. And this is to be, it has to be quantified in terms of its quality. Whether it is good, it is bad, what is the outcome, and so on, whether it is right, it is wrong, and dharmic, adharmic. So these gunas are very much an integral part of the creation, at least as it pertains to human beings. So that we have seen. So here also, so we have to understand different aspects of the spiritual life, again also in terms of gunas. And that guna classification, if you want to use the word, is so thought of in terms of in this model which we have, which has three gunas, the three guna model, sattva, rajas, and tamas. So we are looking at all these things in the context of these three gunas. So here the next one that we were going to look at, which is verse 20. So it has to do with jnana, my understanding, my knowledge with reference to the spiritual pursuit. So let's start looking at that. Sarva bhuteshu ye Sarvabhuteshu yenaikam
सर्वभूतेषु येनैकम्
bhavamavyayameekshate
भावमव्ययमीक्षते
avibhaktam vibhakteshu
अविभक्तं विभक्तेषु
prajnanam viddhi satvikam.
तज्ज्ञानं विद्धि सात्विकम्.
So this is what is the nature of jnanam or knowledge, my understanding, with reference to the world, myself and the world. So it starts off with that which is satvikam, that which is the most mature, that which involves understanding and wisdom to a degree. So for which he says, Sarva Bhuteshu Yena Ekam Bhavam Ikshate. So, Sarva Bhuteshu, in all beings, the person who is able to look at all beings that are there with a certain attitude. What is that attitude? Ekam Bhavam. Not only Ekam Bhavam, it's with a sense of oneness, with an appreciation of oneness. Sarva Bhutam is obviously, this is oneness among the many. Because when I look at the world, I look at the people, I see it made up of many things and many beings. Okay? And all these beings, there's not just one being. There are many different beings. And among the many different beings also, they are different from each other. It's not like an amoeba, It's a whole colony of amoebas where everybody looks the same exactly. It's not like that. Here everyone, beings are different. Not only they are different, they have different qualities, they have different gunas, they have different emotional states. So there is vibhaktam, vibhakti. There are differences. But when I look at them, when I relate to them, I don't see them so essentially different. Even though I experience them differently, I am able to recognize an underlying oneness that connects all the beings. So he says, Yena Ekam Bhavam, Avyayam Bhavam. Avyayam is that from the standpoint of that which doesn't change. So there is a change, the differences in people, it all change. Vyaya is change, declension. So when I look at people, when I look at the world, everything is bound by time. And one of the things that time does is that it changes things. In fact, that is how we recognize time. If there was no change, we would not recognize time. So there is this change is there. There is the time is there. This is the nature of all the different bhutas, okay, in all the beings. Bhutam also is deha. And in this, when I look at that, I see what? What do I see? Ekam avyayam bhavam. There is a changeless. In the things that are changing, there is one thing that sustains all the things that are changing, and that has to be the changeless, in fact. Because everything that it changes has to sustain on something. It cannot sustain on something which is also changing. This is something like movement. If there has to be movement that I recognize, that movement can only be with reference to something which is stationary. Okay. Stationary. If both things are moving, then there is no movement. Then you don't recognize movement. So either it has to be stationary or it has to be relatively stationary. Either way, one fast train, one slow train. But there again, there is a relatively stationary one is. So a similar thing happens with the change also. So change, for the change to be recognized, the one who's recognizing the change also cannot be a changing thing. Because then you won't see the change. I change along with the change, if that is true. Then what happens? Both things change. So who recognizes the change? The one who recognizes the change has to be there before and after the change. Only then you recognize change. But if I exist in a certain way, and when there is a change happening outside, I also have changed completely, That means who's there to recognize the change? So that means I must have been there before and I'm there now. Only then I can see the change. Okay. If you extrapolate this in a bigger way, then you see in order to recognize everything around the world that is changing, there has to be something essential for that which in itself is totally changeless. So that Avyayam here really is referring to Atma. Because Atma is the only one that is changeless. And the other change is with reference to only Anatma. So Sarva Bhuteshu, in all the beings which are changing from the standpoint of the Anatma, the one who is able to recognize, hey, there is a Atma, there is something else that sustains, which is called Atma, which is the changeless. That kind of a knowledge when a person has, and that is how the person relates to the world, he says, Iti Veda, Ikshate, he understands this, and that what again, Avibhaktam Vibhakteshu. Avibhaktam. Vibhakteshu means in all the things that are divided and look separate from each other, he says there is one Avibhaktam, that which has undivided, like even the space. Let's say example, Vyomavatu, like the space. So a space is divided into whatever compartments we create. We build houses, and then there are different rooms. There is a room space. We measure homes in terms of space, right? So what area is the house? How big are the bedrooms? How big is the living room? So this is all the space being divided into many subdivisions. But at the same time, when I visualize space, even though I measure it in terms of divisions, but yet I know that really speaking, space is undivided. You cannot divide space at all. So space itself cannot be divided, it is undivided. Yet, in terms of, so Vyavaharam, this is what Vyavaharam is. Vyavaharam, the divided space I need to function. We all can't live in an undivided space. We would not want that. Each one wants to have his own space, correct? Yeah. So I don't want to be in your space. I don't want somebody else to be in my space. In fact, we need our own space, otherwise we'll get displaced. So I need my own space. So we all have our own space which is divided. At the same time, space cannot be divided. So now, just look at this. So if in order to relate to the undivided space, suppose I understand undivided space. So now in Vyavaharam, what will happen? What will happen? So all the divided space is going to disappear? No, it's not going to disappear. For Vyavaharam, still I'm going to be functioning in the divided space, but with a clear understanding that space really never is or can be divided. It recognizing Advaitam, you don't have to give up Dvaitam. Okay. Because yes, Advaitam underlines, it sustains the Dvaitam, really speaking. So nothing is going anywhere in terms of experience, in terms of Vyavahara. But one's whole understanding of it becomes totally different. It's all inside that the growth is, the freedom is inside. The bondage is in our head. The freedom is also in our head. It's the way we understand. As a consequence of which I may function in the world differently. But that different functioning is for me from my own standpoint. Not that I suddenly start looking, appearing to be very different from everybody else. Another person may not even recognize, in fact, generally doesn't recognize what is going on in another person's head. So, yaha sarva bhuteshu ekam bhavam ikshate avibhaktam vibhakteshu tad jnanam satvikam iti vidhi. So know that is called as satvikam jnanam. So what are the other ways of this jnana? Is Pritatvena tu yajnanam Nana bhavan Nana bhavan pritagvidhan
Nānābhāvam prithaktvidhān
Veti sarveshu bhuteshu
Veti sarveshu bhuteshu
Tatjnanam vidhi rajasam
Tajñānam vidhi rājasam
Prithaktvena Nana bhavan Prithaktvena Vedena. So where I see the Veda, where I see the differences between, that is my experience. That's my experience. So in seeing the difference, the varieties, Prithakvedana, those which are varied. So they are not only divided, but they are different. And they are not only different from each other, they are also different varieties from each other. He says, Sarveshu Bhuteshu Yaha Tat Jnana Sarva. Now, Prithakvedana Yaha Veti. So the person sees it, experiences it, and sees that as the truth. He doesn't see in the many, he doesn't see the oneness. In the many, he sees the manyness. Okay. So whatever I experience the world, that is the reality. That is the truth about the world. So this is called as, so Bheda Jnana. First one was Abheda Jnana. The difference is there is Abheda, not difference. The second one, the difference is there are differences. So I take things at face value. Whatever I see is whatever is real. This kind of understanding and knowledge is called as Rajasic Jnana. Yattu Krishnavade Kasmin
Yattu Krishnavade kasmin
Karye Sattamahaitukam
Karye sattamahaituyam
Atatvarthavadalpam cha
Atatvartavadam cha
Tatjnanam Tattamasamudavritam
Tattamasamudādritam
Yattu Kritsnavat Ekasmin Karye Ahaitukam Dehe Satta. So Karya is Deham. So in the he says Ekasmin Dehe, he says Kritsnavat Ahaitukam Saktam. Ahaitukam. So in one he sees all. Okay. So the first one is in all he sees oneness. The second one is in all he sees all. The third one he says in one he sees all in the sense. So the individual is everything. There is no one, the one that I see, my one. This is the one God. Okay, really. This is the one God. This is the one God which is the problem God. Because, so each one has one God. Each one says one God. But they don't agree on what that God is. So, they don't agree on what that God is. Because they don't agree on what that God is, it's a problem. Because that one, each one is different, really speaking. But for the person, that one is everything. That one is everything. So whether I'm seeing, so Ekam, this is the whole attitude of what my thinking is the right thinking. I am right. My God is there, all the gods, etc. So this kind of jnana is called as tamasic jnana. Asaktam. Asaktam means that which is without cause. I think volume. Or echo maybe. Maybe
Just feedback.
feedback.
Echo is
Okay.
zero. Okay.
Okay. So he says, the people, my being here, why am I here? This is the charvaka, the materialist. Only what I perceive is what is the truth. There is no truth behind perception. Why did I come here? Okay, if this question is asked, so he doesn't accept karma, he doesn't accept dharma, he doesn't accept any of those things. My presence here is without any karanam, without any cause. That's what's called ahetuka. Okay. Hetu is the cause. So things happen because they happen. This is what I see. What is you see is what the truth is. But then not only what you see, what I see. What I see is what the truth is for everybody. So this kind of thinking is called as tamasic thinking. Atatvartham. Atatvartham. Atatvam. Tatvam, you know. Tatvam is the, so that which is the truth about something is called as Tatvam. So it has no essential truth of itself. Okay. So there is a Tatvam in the sense what, when we seek the truth, right? We say, I want to know the truth about myself, about the world. What is this truth that we are seeking? Is there even such a thing as truth about myself? So when I want to know about myself, I want to know about myself what I really am. Okay. My mind always seeks to know the truth. Mind doesn't seek to know untruths. Really, it's so interesting. This is a natural phenomenon. This is not an imposition of values. When you ask a question, you want to know the truth. When a child asks a question, you want to know the truth. Anything, when we seek, want to know the truth of something. Okay? Because that is very fundamental and essential to our being. Even if I want to know myself, I want to know the truth about myself. Why don't I know all the falsehood about myself? Why not? Because it's false. Okay, what other reason can be there? Okay. But this guy doesn't even accept there is an essential truth about anything. So, total, like the atheist, the atheist doing pujas. Okay? So, some atheist, basic person is dying, and then he's a rank atheist, doesn't believe in anything, God, etc. Doesn't believe in. If you don't believe in God, you don't accept worship. It's a waste of time. And then he has a lot of people, followers, and then this person becomes is sick, etc. The followers now all start praying. Who are you praying to? So because to save him, because the atheist is about to die. Even when an atheist is dying, who can save really? Only Bhagavan, right? At least you hope. That is the prayer. That is the prayer. So because there is something inside, that makes you do that. It's easy to argue about something being there or accepting or not accepting, which is fine. But we don't argue that from a standpoint of really an inner realization of what truth is, because we really want to know what is truth. So that is the life. Tattvam. He says, but for a sattvika thinking, the tamasika thinking, there is no tattvam in anything. You just anything goes. That kind of a thinking. So he says, and also alpam. Yad alpam. Alpam is that which is insignificant. Everything in life is insignificant. Values are insignificant. Behavior is insignificant. So you just do whatever, you live as you want to live. Having said that, so remember earlier he talked about two things in the previous verse. He talked about all vyavaharam involves jnanam and karma. I have to know, and then I do things in life. And then each of these involves a subject and an object also. So now he deals with the karma or the object aspect of it. Niyatam sangarahitam
Niyatam sangaraditam
aragadveshatah kritam
aragadveshatakritam
aphala prepsuna karma
apalapresuna karma
yattat satvikam uchyate.
yatat satvikam uchyate.
So this is how we understand actions that we do qualitatively. Okay. What is sattvika karma? Yat karmam niyatam karma. Niyatam is nitya naimittikam. So the actions that are in keeping with shastra vihitam karma. Actions that are in keeping with. So what are the scripture talks about as within dharma. Okay. So there are, for the human beings, there is a actions include dharma, adharma, understanding. So here the scripture always talks about what is actions in terms of dharma and adharma. So in that dharma, adharma, the certain actions are sanctioned by the scriptures as dharmic, okay, explained as dharmic. So these are all what are called as nitya karmas, things which one should do, that one needs to do for one's own spiritual growth. The reasons scripture says these are the ones that need to do, it's an advisory thing, It's not a mandate in the sense, it is an advice because it recognizes that human beings have a choice. They need not do it. They need not do it. So therefore, when a scripture tells you to do something, it it's like a doctor prescribing a medication. The doctors know that only 15% of the patient are going to take the medication as it is prescribed. Apparently, 85% don't do that. They either stop too soon or they miss doses and things like that. So, but that doesn't prevent them from prescribing. So they do, but you always recognize the possibility. In fact, because the fellow doesn't do most of the time, you have to tell him specifically to do, like the dentist. Half the dentist appointment goes in this fellow lecturing you about this not flossing, yeah. Half the lecture you get bored of listening to that fellow. You're sick of listening to flossing. Flossing. So one time, if you forgot to do, also he will catch somehow. I think they just tell you you're not doing regular flossing because he knows 100% of the people don't do regular flossing. Then half an hour you have to listen to them. So like that. So it's not like so anyway. So because nobody does, scripture also it tells you, but it is not a threat and all. It's not to feel threatened by it because it doesn't. Oh, if you don't do this, this is going to happen, etc. That's not the point. Anyway, so niyatam karmas that are sanctioned by scripture. Most scriptures will talk about karma, that kind of universal values, etc. Similarly, there are not many differences. Okay, so the person does the actions, but with what other attitude? Sangarahitam. Sangarahitam. So, sangaha is asakti, abhimanam rahitam. I do it, we do actions purely centered on my needs. There are only two motivating factors for action. One is ragadveshas, one is dharma adharma. Ragadveshas are my personal likes and dislikes. Oh, okay. Automatic translation. Translation. So there is dharma or dharma, right and wrong. So what the scriptures teach as right and wrong, and what I think is what I want to do and what I don't want to do. Okay. So these are the only two ways that make us decide what I'm going to do. So here he says the person whose action is just centered on their own likes and dislikes is not going to care much about whether it is right or wrong. So one's actions should be driven not by ragadvesham but by dharma usually, because they don't always match. Sometimes they contradict each other. What I choose to do, what I want to do, may be what is adharmic, and what I don't want to do may be the one that is dharmic. So the motivating factor should be based on what is dharma, right and wrong. So a person who does that, that means he doesn't have a personal bias involved in it. That is called sangha. So sangha rahitam, the one who is free from, so not trapped by his own changing likes and dislike as the motivating factor. Not only that, the aragat dveshataha specifies it. So free from ragas and deshas, likes and dislikes. Tat kritam aphala prepsuna. Phala prepsuna. Phalam. So the longing for the desire. So the longing, when we do actions, this is another thing. So they say you should do actions without expecting any fruits. Nobody, you expect fruits in the sense you expect your action to fructify, correct? That's a fruit. So without mandopina pravartate, so he says even a person who is not particularly bright is not going to do any action without expecting the action to fulfill itself in terms of its result. So that is not what is being talked about. One, of course, does expect any action to fructify itself, but he says, don't have trishna, don't have longing, excessive longing for, don't be so focused on the result, getting the result of your action, so that you become ineffective in performing the action. We do this all the time. This is the advice we give ourselves, in fact, and others. Like when you take an exam, you tell your kids, you study, study, you keep pushing them to study, study, study. Then the fellow gets so worked up that on the day of the exam, then you tell him, don't study. Today, don't study. Why? Because then why are you harassing me the whole last month? No, no, no. Now, forget about what you studied. In fact, we say that also. Don't think. Don't let your mind think. You just go there and do the best you can do. Why? Why? Because I can only function my best if I'm not preoccupied with whether I'm going to pass or fail. If you're preoccupied by whether you're going to pass or fail, whether you're going to get the result or not, it's going to hamper my own capacity to function properly. So this is something we all know and we all experience. This is what really is talking about. So no, not to get excessive longing for, once you decide to invest your money in a particular whatever it is, then you're supposed to forget about it, right? They say that. There are some people who won't get off the computer. So then little bit up, down, it goes, and then poor thing, the whole day is messed up because it never goes in one direction all the time. It has to go up and down. So that means his anxiety level also goes up. Both ways it goes up and up, I'm telling you. It doesn't go down. Anxiety doesn't go, because if it goes up, then now should I cash it or not? Should I cash it? No, the problem. If it goes down, so again, should I cash it or not? Both ways the fellow is worried. That's why you should do hedge funds. So both ways. Anyway, I don't know all that. But so he says that is Trishna. That is called Trishna. So where your anxiety for the result really cuts down on your even capacity to function. So the person, I do what I can do, I do what I have to do. And then what comes is I will be dished out what is coming to me, So then there is not worry about being a victim about anything. That type of karma, that kind of attitude is called as sattvika karma. So now the karma, a simple action, which in itself is only a physical thing, now takes on a quality by virtue of the attitude of the person performing the action. This is also what is called as karma yoga. Okay. So karma yoga is all not about the action. It is about the attitude. So they will say, if you ashrams, etc. Sometimes they'll say, you do karma yoga. 2 to 3 karma yoga. Like that is there. So 2 to 3 karma yoga. What does that mean? There's work to be done. You just go to work. You can just say there is work to be done. Yeah, you please give 1 hour for the work to be done. No, you don't have to call it karma yoga, because they don't care about what attitude you have. As long as you're just doing the work, it's labor. Karma yoga has to do with a whole attitude towards all the actions that we do. People also think they are doing karma yoga. That's unfortunately, Then they'll say, oh, I'm going for karma yoga. Okay, go. Yattu kamepsuna karma
यत्तु कामेषु न कर्म
sa ankarena va punaha
साहङ्कारेण वा पुनः
kriyate bahulayasam
क्रियते बहुलायासं
tat rajasam udahritam.
तद्राजसमुदाहृतम्.
So this karma, kamepsuna, is a kamepsuna. The previous one was aphala prepsuna. So this is praptu micha. It's called prepsa. So prepsuna means by the desire to get the result. He says kama epsuna means he wants his desires to be fulfilled. Okay. So this is a person now who is driven, as opposed to the previous one, driven by his own ragas, driven by the need to reach and accomplish the end. Sahankarena, with a lot of ahankara. Ahankara in terms of dambha, ahambhava, pride, arrogance, and so on. I am the one who is doing it. Really, it is I have accomplished all of this. It doesn't give any credit to anybody else. All the credit is because of me. And in this person's mind, they are the ones who have put in all the effort. They are the ones who have worked for it. They are the ones who have strived for it. Nothing else, nobody else has contributed in any way. So I totally 100% am the author of this particular product, my certificate, And then you get display, all the certificates have to be displayed in the office. I've said this many times, right? You go to a doctor's office, what do you see? So these big frames you see, irrespective of the size of the certificate. Some certificates are very small, like almost like a credit card. And then some certificates are big, which you also don't know why it has to be so big. But then small or big, the frames are always very big, because they have to match. So this is all I have. I have accomplished that kind of. It's not true. There are so many things that go to a person getting what they do. There are so many people who have suffered through this fellow's efforts. All that nobody's given any credit. That is called as this ankara here. So the one, that kind of karma. Kriyate bahulayasam. He says with lot of effort. With a lot of effort. So the person may put in a lot of effort in accomplishing what they are accomplishing. But then the motivating factors are it's all about me and nothing else. Driven by ambition. When you're driven by ambition, you also start compromising on the way of getting, because the end is what is important. Because the end is what is important, and you glorify the end also. So I'm doing this for the people. I'm doing this for others. I'm doing this for Loka Kalyanam, etc. So I glorify the end result. So now I want to reach the end result and be a big person. But then how I get there, it doesn't really matter. That starts taking a second place. So the person starts breaking rules, cutting corners, doing all things that they are not supposed to do, just by saying that to the end justifies in their mind the way to get it. All those attitudes are what go to make it a rajasic kind of karma. Anubandham kshayam himsam
अनुबन्धं क्षयं हिंसाम्
anapekshya cha paurusham
अनपेक्ष्य च पौरुषम्
मोहाद आरभ्यते कर्म
मोहादारभ्यते कर्म
तामसमुच्यते
यत्तामसमुच्यते
तामसमुच्यते. Anubandham, the consequences, he says. Kshayam, himsam, anapekshya. not recognizing. Anapeksha, not recognizing the consequences. Okay. So this, the extreme form of the previous guy, this is what happens. So now I do actions either for others or for myself without recognizing the consequences. Impulsive. What consequences? Shayam, losses. Things which I do, even in every gain there is a loss. Every gain involves some loss. Every loss involves some gain. In any action, one has to know how to discern both. I always gain something, I lose something in the process. If I want to buy something I want, go buy a car, then I have to give money. So I would like to have a car. I want to gain a car, but then I can't gain the car without losing some money. Sometimes even in the loss that we have, there is some gain. There is some gain. There is something good that comes out of it. Like they say, there is a silver lining in every cloud. So every loss involves some gain. Every gain involves some loss. One has to know how to discern both of them and not just be able to look at this person doesn't have the patience to sit and figure all that out. So doesn't care for the consequences. In terms of himsam, how is my action going to affect another person, cause hurt to another person? We are all very, very sensitive to being hurt. Actually, so because we are so sensitive about our every little need, that when somebody does something and we get so easily hurt, but then we forget to recognize that how our actions also hurt other people. So that is not there. And Paurusham is competence. It's called Paurusham. Knowing one's own capacity to do things, to not do things. This is another thing, not an easy thing to know when to stop, to know when to do, to know when not to do. Why is it so difficult? Why do I take on things in life which I'm not going to be able to accomplish successfully? So is it necessary to do it or not do it? But I have to be a good judge of all of that. Otherwise, we get all enthusiastic about things, but then we are not. Why should I need to know that? Because if I don't, then I will bite more than I can chew. That is what happens, really speaking. It's called Arambha Shuraha. Arambha, very good in starting. There are some people who love to start projects. They have great ideas. They are what I call ideologues, whatever they have big ideas they have. Okay. And they will all enthusiastic also. Then enthusiasm also sometimes they can transfer it to other people. But they get the thing started, then the fellow disappears. Then the other people have to now sit down and break their back in order to finish the project. Or of course they will also give it up. After they see 1-2 times this fellow doing this, then they also drop off. So this not knowing one's own capacity of what I can do, what I cannot do is very not so easy as it seems, because we all experience that. We get caught up in things then which we don't know how to back off, and we do it to each other also. We put each other in position. Then for all wrong reasons we agree to things. So somebody calls, somebody asks something, and then I don't know, should I say yes, should I say no, should I? That's why one good thing about being married is you don't have to immediately say yes to anything. You don't have to. Always first thing you should say is, I have to check. I have to check with my spouse. By the time you check with the spouse, and now the whole issue is over. So that is one good advantage of being married. So otherwise, without thinking, we just say yes, 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 and then we are not able to see through anything. So please take advantage of this fringe benefit. Mohad arabhyate karma moha, avivekata, without viveka, without thinking through. You just simply start doing things. These kinds of actions are, says tamasika. In the sense, actions themselves become tamasika. They don't fulfill, they don't give the result that they could be giving to you. Having said that about karta, jnanam bola talked about karta and karma. Now he's going to talk about the karta, the actual person who's now doing it. What are his qualities? Mukta sango naham vadi,
Mukta sango naham vadi.
dhrit, dhrityutsaha samanvitaha,
Dhrityutsaha samanvitaha.
siddhya siddhyor nirvikaraha,
Siddha siddhyo nirvikaraha.
karta satvika uchyate.
Karta satvika uchyate.
Satvika karta, the doer, the one who is doing the action. What are the marks of such a person? He says, Mukta Sangaha. Mukta Sangaha. Interesting, So, Sangaha is attachment. An attachment. He is, so he says, he is Mukta Sangaha. He is free from attachment. Other is unattached. Asanga, this is Asanga. Atma is Asanga, Nitya. Atma is always Nitya Asanga. Okay. Always unconnected to anything. It is associated with. Okay. It's not that Atma is not associated with anything. Atma is associated with the Anatma. Okay. At least for a person in terms of life, in life, in living. But itself, from its own Swarupa standpoint, Atma is Asanga. This person now, the Jiva, is it Sangaha or Asangaha? He is Sangaha. In the sense, he is attached to so many things. The person is attached to his different aspects of himself, whether it's his mind, whether it's his thoughts, his emotions, his relationships, to the world, to his possessions. So this is a person who is totally attached to the world outside. He says a person, one with a sattvika personality, he is mukta sangaha. Mukta, he is freed from that attachment. Okay. That attachment is not his swarupam. His swarupam is asangaha. He doesn't recognize his asangaha nature. So he becomes sangaha, free from being bound by being attached. Therefore, he becomes bound. Okay. So the attachment of the person to the world outside is what makes him bound. Okay. And then he gets freed from that bondage with his understanding and with his knowledge. So he is called as Mukta Sangaha. He is a Mukta Sangaha. How do you become a Mukta Sangaha? How do you free oneself from all these things? Only by recognizing our nature as Asanga. Asangoham, punah punaha. Satchidananda Rupoham, Ahamevaham, Advayaha. So he says, I am, Swarupam is Asanga. Only in the recognition of that, he can truly become a Mukta Sangha. Because he's Muktaha from the bondage, Bandhana, which is caused by the Sangha. That's the idea. Nicely put, the word. Anahamvadi. So, Ahamvadi is, so everything is about aham. Everything else. The ego, this is what is called egocentric. So, an egocentric thinking, when a baby is born, they are not egocentric. They just experience the world. And they look at the world. They start distinguishing once they recognize more and more about the world, they suddenly also start realizing that they are also an entity which is different from the world. It's different from the world. So I separate myself, the subject, from the world that I am. This discovery takes place. That is what they say when they start using the I sense. The child starts using the pronoun, the first person, I. Before that, they don't have a concept of I, but they also refer to themselves in the third person because the parent is always addressing them in the second or the third person. A parent never addresses a child in the first person. You know, it. A child. Suppose you're calling the little one, so they will say, "You come here." You tell him, "You come here." You won't say, "I come here." You don't say. You always say, "You come here." For a 2-year-old, you say, "You come here," or you use the name. You use the name. So, baby, come here. So that means you're either using second or third person. Nobody ever uses the first person to a child. But yet, the child in the beginning will use the third person to address themselves. They will use the third person. So they will, if you keep calling them baby, baby, they'll say baby is hungry, baby wants to go to the bathroom. But they use the third person. But at one point, that third person becomes first person without anyone ever telling them that, Ray, you should say I, don't say you. Okay. That is called the I sense, development of the, really speaking, ahankar. If you want to use, sorry. So if you want to understand what is this ahankara, how the ahankara develops, we are not born with the I sense. We are born. Then we develop a I sense little later. So that is when the person recognizes that I am something which is unique. So that discovery, is a cognitive stage of development, is when there is a sense of I. Then on this core sense of I, then the I is built up more and more of what the I is. Then in terms of identity and name and all kinds of, as we grow. And it keeps changing also. It's not a fixed thing. It keeps changing because I keep redefining myself in terms of my knowledge, in terms of my experience, in terms of my status, in terms of, and the more and more I discover about myself. Okay. So Ahankara, this entity, is a growing, changing entity. But it's not something you're born with. It is something which has developed over a period of time. But my existence as an individual was before this I sense. I was born as an individual without a sense of I. Okay. Later on, I get this sense of I. So when this child starts thinking, gets this I sense, that is what is called as the ego. But the thinking now becomes, suddenly this is a new discovery, okay, different from the world. So it becomes egocentric. Egocentric means the center of the universe is my ego. That is egocentric. Okay. There are words they use like theocentric, homocentric, So homocentric means, there is the universe, there is me, there is Bhagavan. What is at the core of this whole creation? The man. The man is the core. So because without this one me in the middle, there is no world that is experienced. God is also somewhere there sitting in the heaven. So my whole understanding of the universe is centered on man as the center of creation. This is what is called as homocentric view of thinking. And as opposed to what this is, theocentric, where the center of the whole thing moves around one center that holds it all together. That is Bhagavan. That is the Lord. That is the theocentric thinking. And of course, in the middle, all these fellows, we are stuck with this ego. Similarly, in the egocentric thinking, I am the one. So a child always in their thinking, it's like me, is what they call the me generation. Okay. So the me generation is another word for this kind of egocentric thinking. And when we start viewing everything, the world, my interactions, my relationships also, it's all about me. That thinking is called as a egos. That is a ahamvadi. You know, all his vada, all his talking, all his expressions are centered around me as the center of the center of the whole world. So he says the person is not like that. It is not that everything is all about me. You know. Dhriti Utsaha, I'm on verse 26. Dr. Hart, yeah. Dhriti Utsaha Samanvitaha. The one who is endowed with this capacity. Dhriti is dhairyam, will, patience, and a will. Utsaha, enthusiasm. So because remember it's connected to the karma also, the actions that a person does. So willing to do what has to be done. Siddhya siddhyoho nirvikaraha. Samatvam. This is samaha. Siddham is what is accomplished. Asiddham is what I don't accomplish. So in life, there are things I can accomplish. There are things I'm not able to accomplish. How I respond to it. Karma is about doing, but karma is also about responding to the outcome of my actions. So in terms of the outcome, sometimes it is I can accomplish what I can accomplish. Sometimes I don't accomplish what I want to accomplish. So this person has a attitude of what is called samatvam. Samatvam we translate as sameness, okay, and then we misunderstand it. Okay? It is sameness, but in the sense it can't be literal. So if I get, when I'm hungry and I want to eat, so whether I get food or if I get food or whether I don't get food, I have samatvam. What does that mean? That means my reaction is not this. It's exactly the same. The food comes, I eat it. Food doesn't come, I don't eat it. It doesn't change anything inside. It's not like that. Food doesn't need, I'll still be hungry, right? The hunger is not going to go away. Hunger is still going to be there. But it's how I react to getting or not getting. That's the Bhiksha Buddhi. So in Bhiksha Buddhi, that's what they say. The Bhiksha Buddhi is, so what I get, I'm thankful for and I eat. If I don't get, then also I'm thankful in the sense. So it's not, I don't make a big issue out of it. Okay. What I get, I don't make a, some days you get fresh food, some days you get leftover food. That's especially in this country. So generally, or sometimes there is never a question of always fresh food, but there can be a situation of always leftover food, even though you cook fresh food. So because people cook fresh food, but then when you have to eat it, there is leftover from before. So it's a leftover. So first you have to finish the leftover food. You know this. We were with Swamiji one time, and so this is one couple, young couple. At that time they were young. They'd just gotten married. So they came to visit. They lived in New York. They came to see. So the wife was going away to India for a month. So Swamiji asked the man. So he asked him, "Oh, so what are you going for? Do you know how to cook and all? Are you going to be able?" No, Swamiji. She's cooked enough for me, for the whole month, and in small 30 containers are there, and every day I'll take out something and I'll eat. So then Swamiji was asking me, "Oh, so you'll have to eat leftovers, all the time." So he said, "No, Swamiji, I'm used to that." So then somebody didn't understand exactly why. They were, what do you mean you're used to it? She doesn't cook? No, she cooks at home. But I'm used to leftover all the time. We only eat leftovers. How do you eat leftovers? Because she's cooking. No, because when she cooks, there is leftover from before. So we have to first finish that. And when by the time we finish that, this becomes leftovers. So I never eat fresh food. So anyway. So that is samatvam. That is not samatvam. No, fresh is fresh, old is old. But samatvam here is normally when we don't get what we want, we have a tantrum. I mean, all our other issues get superimposed on that stupid thing, and then we get upset. Even small, even if it's not even like not getting food. Sometimes I get food, but not quite the taste I'm expecting. Yeah. So suppose it had more salt, or it had no salt. So no salt at least is can be doctored. Extra salt you can't doctor. You need the other doctor for the extra salt, who keeps telling her don't take salt. So that's another problem. But suppose it happens. So it happens. It happens. But there are people who really will get very angry, will get very upset, we even throw the food and things like that. So that kind of reaction is an extreme reaction, really has nothing to do with the food there. So in samatvam, with respect to one's actions, what is samatvam? So when I perform an action, I know that the results that come to me from whatever I do in life, they are all built into the action itself. Built into the action. Whether it is the result is what I want or what I don't want, really speaking, there's nothing personal there. If I don't get what I want, it's not like somebody is against me or something is against me or God has it in for me. Those kinds of things are not there. It all has to do with the action that I perform and how I perform, what I perform. Because phalam is always built into the karma. So if I have this clear understanding of that, then means it takes away the victim attitude in terms of the result. If it doesn't go my way, and not having that attitude really, then I can have samatvam. So sometimes I recognize, okay, maybe I didn't do something right, or there are other factors that play a role. All that. So with all of that understanding, a certain attitude towards the results of action is what is called as samatva. So the one who siddhya siddhyoho. So with respect to things which I get, which I expect, with reference to things which I'm expecting, but I don't get, I have a attitude, a kind of a attitude of, what do they call it? Equipoise. An equipoise. Such a person is a satvikaha karta. 27. Ragi karma phala prepsuhu.
Ragi karma phala presuhu.
Lubdho himsatmako shuchihi.
Buddho himsatmako shuchihi.
Harsha shokanvita karta.
Harsha shokamvita karta.
Rajasah parikirtitaha.
Rajasa parikrititaha.
So he is a ragi. Ragi. Not the cereal, but the one full of raga. The full of, driven by desires. Karma phala prepsuhu. Remember the same word, it was used earlier on for the sattvika, the opposite. He was akarma phala prepsuhu. So he is the one who is just who is preoccupied with the results of the action. Lubdha, one who is greedy, not enough, whatever Desires fulfilled lead to greed. Desires unfulfilled lead to anger. This is a very common experience. So the more I get, the more I want. Himsatmaka. Himsatmaka. Parapidakara swabhavaha. Just causing pida, make the fellows suffer. make other people, just make things difficult for other people for no real reason also. Children sometimes do this. They will, they like to poke at ants and insects. And I don't know where this comes from. Sometimes you see this even in kids, simply just to make somebody squirm. There are adults also like that, just getting to make somebody squirm, and then you get some kind of sense of control and things like that. So this himsatmaka, the one who simply likes to make things difficult for others. Ashuchihi, the one who doesn't value so cleanliness in terms of inner and outer cleanliness. So such a person. Harsha Shokan Vitaha, the one who is totally bound and conditioned by joys and sorrows. So little bit something happens and the fellow is on top of the world. A little bit something opposite happens, he is totally in the doldrums, down. Harsha Shokan Vitaha. This is such a karta, he is Rajasaha. He's a Rajasic kind of a person, driven by emotions, driven by ambitions, driven by desires, reactive to things. Ayukta Prakrita Stabdaha
Ayukta Prakrita Sabdaha
Shato Naikritiko Lasaha
Shato Naishritiko Lasaha
Vishadi Dirgha Sutri Cha
Vishadi Dirgha Sutri Cha
Karta Tamasa Uchyate
Karta Tamasa Uchyate
Ayuktaha, the one who is undisciplined. So Yuktaha, like a yogi, Indriya, the one who has Indriyas under his control. Is Ayuktaha, is the one who has no discipline. Discipline in terms of their own thinking. Everything is like Swami used to say, a pajama. It's a pajama mentality. Everything is loose. Everything is loose. Starting from his outfit. His outfit is loose. His thinking is loose. His behavior is loose. His values are loose. Everything like a very loosey-goosey goose guy. Loosey-goosey guy. He's called Ayuktaha. Prakritaha. Prakrita Purusha. Well, we have seen this. Prakrita means the one who is driven by nature. Whatever comes to the mind, the fellow wants to do, as opposed to Samskritam. So Prakritam, we are all born Prakritam. We are driven by, like children. Children are all considered Prakrita Purushas because they are driven by their nature. Then until they are old enough, when they become 7, the 7 is the age of the legal, where you can be a witness, where some understanding is there. Okay, so that's at that point also some of them, so that our samskaras also begin Upanayana, for the child. So that the main samskara which gets the fellow to do with some understanding is Upanayana, 8 years. So that's called Samskritam. So it is samskara that makes a person Samskritaha, makes him eligible, makes him ready for a growth process. So that's called Samskritam. Prakritam is the one who is driven by Prakriti, by Swabhava, by one's own nature. So this kind of a person, as an adult now, we are not talking of the child. So one who is undisciplined, who is driven by his nature, Stabdaha. Stabdaha is rigid, unbending, stubborn, unable to accommodate anyone else's thinking. I am thinking what I am thinking. So I am doing what I am doing because I consider it right. And nobody else has any standpoint. My standpoint is it's a very egocentric thinking. In other words, this is thinking of a 3-year-old. It's not supposed to be there in a 30-year-old, much less a 60-year-old. But somehow it seems to come back. So after the 60s, we all seem to become more rigid. So not only the bones, even our buddhi becomes more rigid. So some shataha, Shataha is deceitful. One is always, there's no honesty, there is no straightforwardness for Shataha. Mayavi is called. See, there are two types of deceit. One is you just deceive people, you don't care. Then there is another worse guy who deceives people but pretending to be straightforward. So that is more tricky. So this person, you don't even know because he presents himself as if he's very straightforward, but then at the same time he's very conniving. And one fellow's cunning, this fellow's conniving. So this kind of deception, he's called as Shataha. Naikritikaha Paravibhedana Paraha. Naikritikaha. The one who sows dissension among others. Divide and conquer. The whole divide and conquer thinking. Create problems between people. This is how you turn one against the other. You control all of them. You confuse all of them. So this kind of a attitude, he says. Then alasaha. Alasaha is the one who is a pessimist, or so irresponsible with respect to what has to be done, what has to not be done. Vishadi, the one who is a very cynical, finds always problems and faults with things. Dirgha Sutri, something has to be done. So the one who something that has to be done, he will do day after tomorrow, not even tomorrow. The procrastinator, that kind of a person. Dirgha Sutri. All these kinds of attitudes and personality go to making what is a tamasic individual. Tamasic karta uchyate. Okay, so we'll see later on. He talks about buddhi, sukham, etc. And then he will talk about this from the standpoint of this varna dharmas. How the gunas contribute towards me doing what I have to do. Our whole concept of varnashrama dharma. Ashrama dharma is one thing. So what are my duties to do in life in terms of my functioning? This is a whole area of lot of contention and confusion, etc. This whole concept of the supposed caste thing, caste is a jati. So there are these three words. There is a jati dharma, which is used, okay. Then there is a guna dharma, and there is a karma. The four jatis that they talk about. So the four jatis, the scriptures never talk about janma jati. Janma. It always talks in terms of guna and karma. Primarily guna. Then and karma also connected to guna. That is what scriptures talk about. But then this janmana, that the janma based jati is really a creation of, it is a creation of the people. So that's where the confusion comes up. So when we try to understand what is this jatis, the four jatis, we get confused between janma and karma and guna and all that. We look at all that he'll talk about that. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Guru Pyo Namaha.
Hari Om.